G'day tubers, how are we people? Welcome to part 4. Thank you to my subscribers, my viewers and anyone else. A couple of new subscribers lately, we're up over 200. Thank you to them. I never ask for them, as you know, but you are more than welcome to subscribe. I'm not in this for money, purely a bit of fun. Anyway, let's get on with this, guys. Well, we'll start doing a bit of assembly on our steering box. We can begin by putting the new seals in. What we'll do is we'll put a bit of Permatex just around, that's the stuff there, Permatex, just around in there, just to seal in that inner edge. You don't need heaps of it. And when we assemble the shafts, we'll put a bit of grease on the seal and in on that bearing surface. There is a left and right on these. As you can see, that one's got an L on it, so that's the left. And obviously the other one's got an R for right. So this is our left-hand side. These sector gears, or whatever you call them, are on a master spline. You can just make it out in there, so they only go one way. So that's easy. Yeah, let's start putting it together. Well, that's the right-hand side, or driver's side, or whatever you want. Bit hard to have a driver and passenger side on a tractor. That movement there gets all adjusted once the main shaft is in and your clearances are set. Rotating nice and freely. Yeah, we can put the other side in there now, and same thing, as I say, it's a master spline, so it'll only go one way. Just make sure you get your left and your right ones in the right positions. Well, we're about to put the plate on the bottom of the steering box. The shafts are in. As you saw, they went in nicely, moving quite freely. Sorry about the glare, it's a beautiful sunny day out here. We're going to put a little bit of silicone on this side, under the plate. That's where the oil has to seal. The oil's in there, not in, oh, the oil is in there, but that's gearbox oil. Beg your pardon, in there. We don't want oil on this side of that plate because that'll be in the bell housing, and that is incorrect. So we'll just seal around there with silicone. We'll bog a little bit in these spots and hope to Christ that we don't have any leaks. There should be 10 of these little countersunk screws which go in those holes there. They marry up, of course, with the sort of belled in, tapped in, whatever you want to call the bloody word, the divots on this plate. And they're a flathead screwdriver. Yeah, should be 10 of them, so let's go. Well, that's our gearbox top on and steering box on. Arms are still moving freely, which they obviously should. Nothing's hooked up. Pull all the bolts down evenly. I didn't use any sealer under the gearbox side. I don't think it needs it. If it leaks, I'll have to pull it apart again, won't I? But everything was flat, so it should be all right. What I'm going to do now, I'll just get a tin of black spray paint. Just touch up the bolts, just so they marry up with the rest of it, you know, like down here and that. I put a little bit of copper coat on them. They're a steel bolt into an aluminium housing, just in case they tend to want to bind or gall. It's just a bit of anti-seize. We're going to have to, I'll talk about these adjusting screws in a minute. Yeah, so no, we're starting to look all right. Yeah, we'll keep going. They're the adjustment screws and lock nut for the backlash on these gears on the main shaft. Just buffed them up, cleaned them up, ran the threads and turned them black, as I do. I just like the look of it. I don't know why. It looks a bit better than overspray, I reckon. So yeah, it's just little details. I don't know, maybe I'm too bloody fussy. Maybe I'm not fussy enough, but yeah, can't adjust them yet, obviously, until the shaft's in, and we can start setting some clearances. maybe it's obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD, whatever they call it. That's the filler plug for the gearbox, obviously, as you can see. It was pretty scummy, and I thought, well, I'll stick it in the lathe, just turn it up a bit and that, and clean up all the edges, heat it up and turn it black, and clean up the copper washer underneath. Yeah, it looks all right. Yeah, bits and pieces, chops and changes. As I mentioned, guys, I'm going to be running a thermo fan, and to turn it on and off, I've got a sensor, you know, a temperature sensor. Obviously, that's probably got to go at the hottest part, which is going to be just under the thermostat, which is, of course, like so. The plan is I'm going to get on the lathe and turn up a boss and drill a hole through there and get the boss welded to there. I have to keep it up a bit because you have to be able to get those bolts out. I don't think there's anything else in this area other than the spring for the governor. I could go that side, but it's all getting a bit tight to weld. I'm not an aluminium welder, I'll have to get someone to do it. But the plan is that that'll go in there like so. And that'll be the temperature pickup for the thermatic fan. Worst come to worst, if the thermo fan doesn't work, you just put a plug in it and that's the end of it. So, yeah, so I can't have it too high up, obviously, because it may interfere with the body of the thermostat. But we've got plenty of room there. So, yeah, that's the plan. That's just going to screw in there just like that. And, yeah, I think I've got the right sort of tap for that. And, yeah, we'll turn up a boss on the lathe and see what happens. Well, I thought I had a tap for that, but unfortunately I didn't. I think it's a special one somehow anyway. Mucked around a bit, couldn't get it to go. Turned up a bit of aluminium, which will be welded in there like that. That red line's just the bottom of the thermostat. I'll get that welded, you know, bored out a bit more, tap to that and weld it. I'm not going to buy a tap because I can't weld that. There's a guy up the road who does all that sort of engineering and machining work. I'll get him to muck about with it and hopefully he can weld it as well. Well guys, the time has come to let the cat out of the bag. The colour of our panel work is gloss orange. Sort of inspired by my Husqvarna ride-on mower. Black and grey and orange, and I reckon it's a great combination. So yeah, we're going with a gloss orange for the panel work. I think it'll look good. I'll do as much of the paint and panel as I can myself. As you can see, I've already got a little bit of a run there, but that's all right. Donald Bradman had a lot of runs too. So yeah, no, but anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to assemble our steering shaft. So these bearings will have to be greased. Got to put the outer races in the ends there. Yeah, and we can sort of put that shaft in, put a preload on it, and assemble it on the tractor. Preload on the steering shaft. I don't know what the book says. I'll just treat it like a wheel bearing. I've got the bottom of the shaft clamped in aluminium jaws. So that stops the shaft from turning. I just turned that nut down, the preload nut, until it basically stopped. That says to me I've pulled all the bearings and everything home properly, and then just backed it off just till that turns freely. It feels like there's no slop, it's rotating easy. I'd say that's it. Well, that's the steering column done, guys. There's a bit of a run there. I've got to touch that up. I don't know if I can do it in this order. I'm not sure if you have to assemble the whole thing first and then put it on. I don't see why. Might not be able to get at some of the bolts. I don't know yet. Anyway, steering's working beautifully. Filled it up with oil. Nothing's leaked out yet. Hopefully it won't. Because, yeah, the oil's up to about that height there. So the gear set's covered, all of that sort of thing. yeah, hopefully we're all right. But the throttle's in. As I say, just replace that little split pin there, a bit of oil on it and that, and yeah, should be all right. I'll just double check these bolts are tight and that's it. These are the new brake shoe centralisers. Difference being, well, there's the same one. One of these tabs is broken. See how that one's got two tabs? That one's broken off from down there, as you can see. So I don't think it'll centralise the shoes. So yeah, so we've got two new ones of them. We've cleaned up the nuts and bolts. We can sit them in, and we'll just nip them, but they won't be tight because this is adjustable, from what I understand. So we'll have a look at that. Well, that's the brake centralisers in. They're not tight. There it is there. I'm pretty sure that's the way they go. Before I can actually start putting shoes and that on, I think I have to put these assemblies in here, those activating, I don't even know what you call them. But I think we'll clean them up first and put them in, and that way once that's done, that shaft is in. Now those are these things. Now I've just cleaned them up in the parts washer and buffed them. But what I'm going to do is, and me being me, see it's got these rough casting marks. I'm just going to dress them up a little bit, and they'll be powder coated. Yeah, just to sort of make them look a bit nicer. As I say, maybe I've got too much time on the ends, I don't know, but I think they just look a little bit better. Well, they're cleaned up, guys. That in there is just where the shaft has gone through and they've welded it. I'm not grinding that right back, there's no point. You don't even see it. But yeah, just, you know, cleaned them up and that, and just sort of tidied up the castings. Same as that. I've tried to leave the part numbers. That's why I haven't cleaned around them. Just for a little bit of originality. Yeah, other than that, yeah, just cleaned them up. They've got to be masked off, obviously. And yeah, that's them. But yeah, they'll be powder coated black. Yeah, look all right. Yeah, not too bad. Give them a bit of a clean in a bit of whatever, a bit of thinners or something before, just so there's no grease and shit on them. Like with all painting, a little bit of a wear on that bush, but nothing too serious. Next time you see them, they'll be black. Well, that's those brake components, powder coated, guys. They come up all right. Bit thin in a couple of spots. I was a bit low on bloody air pressure. But anyway, they're still warm, actually. They come up all right, as I say, a little bit thin in a couple of spots there. Cleaned out the grease nipples, put them in. We can basically put these in, I think. Oh, and I cleaned up the nuts and bolts and blacked them. So, oh, you just started on one of the brake adjusters, took those adjusters right out. There's a left and right hand thread on them, so you can't muddle them up. Just buffed it up a little bit, cleaned the threads, put a bit of copper coat on the threads. So we're sort of getting ready to start to put the brakes back. I've just got all the other bits and pieces just soaking in a bit of degreaser, and yeah, just clean them up, and yeah, you know the story. Well, that's those cams in, guys. I'm pretty sure that's correct. That's got to be greased, of course, and the spring and washer go as seen. That should be all right. We can start thinking about putting some shoes on, brake shoes I mean, and yeah, that's, as I say, I don't want to tighten that up yet, just till I'm 100% sure that that's correct, but it seems to look okay. Right, guys, we've cleaned up all the parts for the brakes, the adjusters, springs, other associated bits and pieces, new shoes, as you know. We're going to start doing a bit of assembly here. As I say, I haven't got a tripod, so I can't, I'll show you as much as I can. What we'll do is these backing pins there's two there, two down the bottom. We'll put a little bit of copper ease or Penrite copper coat, whatever you want to call it, on it. They will move on those a little bit. The grease won't run if it gets hot, and reduces friction a little bit, make these shoes move a little bit easier. Not that there should be a lot of movement once they're adjusted, but yeah, it doesn't hurt. A little bit of copper coat on those moving components won't hurt at all. I've also put some in the on the threads of those adjusters. You can just see a little bit of it there. Yeah, all right, let's start putting this together, and we'll start on the passenger side here. Passenger side, left-hand side, I beg your pardon, and see what happens. Fix your brake shoe in place with that flat washer and that nylock nut. Do not do it super tight. That's why it's a nylock nut, so the nut will stay tight but still allow movement without loosening. As you can see, that's moving. It's just firm. That's going to keep it sitting square. That's what those pins are for, down there, those ones. So the shoe actually sits at 90 degrees, or not parallel, at right angles to the drum. That can be adjusted later, but yeah, just nip these just enough to hold it in place, but not enough that it can't move. That's the shoes on. We'll put the brake adjuster in next. Just make sure that your brake adjuster is backed right off, so the minimum adjustment it'll go to. That's the brake adjuster in, guys. As you know, I put new centralisers on it. I was having a lot of trouble getting that bottom, that little, whatever you want to call it, adjuster to sit properly in the shoe. Turns out these things here were slightly long, and it was preventing the adjuster from going back that way. So I trimmed them off, and that sat up nice and square. So that's looking all right. Yeah, just make sure it's backed right off. Put your spring on. Then we can go to the front. These springs are a lot harder to put on. They've quite a lot of tension in them. We'll see how we go. Well, that's the brake shoes on, guys. Red spring to the top, white or greeny spring to the bottom. Remember to put those washers on. Yeah, that's about it. How I got the springs on is I made a little, where is it? Can't even find it now. A little hook out of wire. That hook's on there, and then you put a screwdriver in there, and then you can sort of pull that, lever that down from there to put the spring on. I've seen guys use plastic ties. That's fine, but they tend to break. So just a bit of wire wrapped around. Went on beautifully. The bottom spring went on heaps easier than the top one. Obviously two different tensions, primary and secondary shoe or something, no doubt. That's it. That's the dash panel, guys. I've drilled two more additional holes, as you can see, 1, 2. I've also put some body filler on it to address the low spots. We've just got it drying now beside the fire because it's freezing here. Yeah, so that's slowly getting ready. There'll probably be a couple of switches extra added because I do want to run headlights, that sort of thing. Probably a battery isolator. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to move on to the lower dash, which that is, and install the hood latches or the bonnet latches, whatever you want to call them, and try and do it without scratching it. I've just done it in that tar paint on the back, and the front is the finished colour. So let's see how we go. Well, there we have it, guys. One lower dash assembly. Looks a little bit better than what it did. So we'll put that over somewhere out of the way, and that can wait until she's ready for assembly on the tractor. Well, there's our dash, guys. Come up good. Bit of filler, that's where that original hole was. Bit of filler, bit of paint, come up nice. They're the bolts that go through. Obvious, I painted them orange so because you'll see them. I didn't want to do them black, it might start looking a bit odd. So that actually goes behind the steering column there. Yeah, with those nicely coloured bolts. So that come up all right, that. I mean, I'm no spray painter, but yeah, that panel didn't come up too bad. There we have it, guys, one dash assembly. Got some new gauges coming. A couple of new gauges, new oil pressure gauge, new amps meter. I'll use the old temp gauge. Yeah, as I say, I want to add a couple of extra switches and this and that. I'll have some lights and that, probably add a battery isolator. But yeah, you start to get the idea. Couple of gauges and you get the idea. Hour meter there, I've had that for years. It's out of a old 80s model International Transtar actually. It's brand new, it's only got 1 hour on it. So we'll put that in. And that's temp gauge. Got an oil gauge coming which will go there, and that'll be an amps meter. So most of them will light up, except for the hour meter. It doesn't have a light facility. And I'm going to put a tacho somewhere there. I don't know where I'll put the tacho yet, and don't even know if I'll use it, but yeah, it's starting to look like something. Well, that's a lower dash on, guys. Yeah, you get the idea. I've got to put a bit of black along there. It doesn't look right. That's just about right on the back of that gauge, but I think we'll be okay. Yeah, looks all right. Yeah, coming up okay. It's yeah, a bit better than what it was. Well, you start to get the idea, guys. That's basically gauges in. Nothing's really wired yet. We've got amps, we've got oil, we've got temperature, and we've got engine hours. So, yeah, a few more switches and stuff to go. Battery box is back on, guys. I've just started mucking around with a little bit of wiring here. These brown wires are for the instrument lights, which they are. It's all got to be ran, of course. Can take that back out easily if it's going to be in the way. There's not a heap of room to work, but I'll have enough, hopefully. Yeah, so battery box is in. I've just got to find 2 nuts for that. I don't know what I've done with them under there. The other plan here is with the little toolbox. The guy I bought it off, sorry about the shadows there, it's a bit, that any better? Yeah, the sun's out. He had a little hole here, and he used to have a battery charger in there because this thing used to lose power. In the battery, there was must have been a parasitic drain or something, or not charging. I've opened up that. That's going to have a rubber grommet in it, after it's painted, of course. In here is going to be all of my main electrics. You know, your relays, all that sort of thing, any junctions, anything like that, is all going to be hidden in there. And as you know, that goes on those 2 holes there, sort of like so. Yeah, and all the wiring will go in there. Just try to neaten it up a little bit and just look, you know, slightly not as cluttered. You know, I don't like the look of wires unless they're really, really neat and tidy. I don't think they look any good, but that's just me. The rest of it you've seen up to this stage. That's the temperature gauge sensor. Hour meters, just ignition and earth. New oil pressure gauge we got. Got the new fittings there. You can probably just make that out in there. That one there, 3/8 UNF, I think it is. I think Bundy Bear said, and that's what it was. And of course, ammeter. So, yeah, we'll just start tinkering with a little bit of wiring. I've got some terminals for the starter down there. Yeah, I'll just do bit by bit. There's no method to my madness. Toolbox is done, guys. As I say, I'm going to put the electrical stuff in that. I don't want to open it too far. It tends to bump on that little latch, unless the latch is around the other way, of course. Yeah, just screwed up the paint a little bit. I've just got to touch it up here. Some of the black come through. And it needs a bit more orange, but we'll fix that up. But yeah, that'll become not a fuse box, but yeah, the for all the electrical. Well, that's the gear shifting, guys. That's quick and easy. I just I marked that a little bit there. Just blacked them, just cleaned them all up, sandblasted them and blacked them. The handle's been powder coated, and the knob, yeah, you guessed it, number 8 ball. Just I like my little custom touches, just something different. Yeah, it sort of goes with the build. It's all working nicely. Put a bit of grease and all that on it, and you know, start mechanism, reverse, all that's there. So yeah, that's what it is. So it's yeah, starting to look like a tractor, slowly but surely. See you in part 5, guys.